When you think of prehistoric life, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, it's the towering Tyrannosaurus rex or the majestic Brontosaurus. Dinosaurs have captured our imaginations for centuries. But what if I told you that long before the first dinosaur ever walked the Earth, our planet was home to a world of creatures just as fascinating, and in some cases, even more bizarre? We're about to journey back in time, not to the Jurassic or Cretaceous, but much, much further, to the eras that preceded the age of dinosaurs. This is the story of the forgotten rulers of ancient Earth. Our journey begins around 360 million years ago, during a period called the Carboniferous. Imagine a world unlike anything you've ever seen. The air is thick with oxygen, about 35% compared to our 21% today, which allows life to grow to incredible sizes. The continents are clumped together, forming the supercontinent Pangaea, and vast, swampy forests cover much of the land. These aren't forests of pine trees or oaks. They're dominated by giant ferns, club mosses, and horsetails, some reaching heights of over 100 feet. It's a humid, alien landscape, and crawling through the undergrowth are some truly monstrous invertebrates. Meet Arthropleura, a giant millipede that could grow up to 2.5 meters long. That's over 8 feet. Picture a creature as long as a small car, with a segmented, armored body scuttling across the forest floor. Despite its intimidating size, most scientists believe Arthropleura was a herbivore, munching on decaying plant matter in the swampy soil. Its sheer scale was a direct result of the high oxygen levels, which allowed its simple respiratory system to support a much larger body. It wasn't the only giant bug around. Patrolling the skies was Meganeura, a type of griffin flea that looked like a dragonfly on steroids. With a wingspan of up to 75 centimeters, or about 2.5 feet, it was one of the largest flying insects of all time. It was a formidable predator, using its sharp mandibles to snatch smaller insects and even small amphibians right out of the air. This was a world where insects weren't just pests. They were apex predators of the sky. But the real action was happening in the water. The Carboniferous swamps were teeming with amphibians. These weren't the small frogs and salamanders we know today. Creatures like Eriops, a 6-foot-long predator, ruled the shallows. With a wide, flat skull full of sharp teeth and a powerful, stocky body, Eriops was perfectly adapted for ambushing prey. It likely behaved much like a modern crocodile, lying in wait near the water's edge to snatch unsuspecting fish or land-dwelling creatures that wanted too close. These early amphibians were a crucial step in the evolution of life on land. But they were still tied to the water, needing to lay their eggs in aquatic environments. As we move forward in time, the climate begins to change. The Carboniferous swamps start to dry up, and a new era dawns, the Permian period, which began around 299 million years ago. This environmental shift gave a huge advantage to a new group of animals that had evolved a groundbreaking innovation: the amniotic egg. This self-contained egg allowed them to reproduce on dry land, freeing them from the water completely. These animals were the synapsids, a group that includes the ancestors of all mammals, including us. And in the Permian, they were the undisputed kings. Let's meet the most famous of these pre-dinosaur predators, Dimetrodon. Instantly recognizable by the massive sail on its back, Dimetrodon is often mistaken for a dinosaur. But it lived and died out millions of years before the first dinosaur appeared. In fact, it's more closely related to you and me than it is to a T-Rex. Dimetrodon was an apex predator, reaching lengths of up to 15 feet. That iconic sail wasn't just for show. Scientists believe it was filled with blood vessels and likely used for thermoregulation, absorbing heat from the sun to warm up quickly in the morning, giving it a huge advantage over its cold-blooded prey. It could become active faster, hunt more effectively, and dominate the landscape. Its jaws were filled with sharp, differentiated teeth, another feature linking it to mammals perfect for slicing through the tough hides of its prey, which included large amphibians and other synapsids. But Dimetrodon wasn't the only impressive creature of the Permian. Inzoater lurked. This was the age of armored fish, and none were more terrifying than Dunkleosteus, which actually lived a bit earlier in the Devonian period but helps set the stage. This was a 10-meter-long, 4-ton behemoth. It didn't have teeth. Instead, it had bony plates that formed a self-sharpening, guillotine-like beak. The biting force of Dunkleosteus was one of the most powerful of any animal ever. It could bite with a force of 8,000 pounds per square inch, easily shearing through the bony armor of other fish. It was the undisputed apex predator of the ancient seas. Back on land, as Permian period progressed, the synapsids diversified into an incredible array of forms. There were herbivores like Edaphosaurus, another sail-backed creature, but one that used its peg-like teeth to grind up tough plants. There were also smaller, more agile predators that hunted in the shadows of their larger cousins. But as we approach the end of the Permian, around 252 million years ago, a new and even more fearsome group of synapsid predators emerged, the Gorgonopsians. Imagine a wolf crossed with a saber-toothed cat, but the size of a bear. That's a Gorgonopsian. These were fast, powerful predators with long, dog-like legs positioned directly under their bodies, allowing for a more efficient and speedy gait than the sprawling posture of earlier reptiles. Their most terrifying feature was a pair of long, sharp canine teeth. Some of the first true saber-teeth, the larva of them, Enos transovia, was a. It likely stalked the vast, arid plains of late Permian Pangaea, preying on large, armored herbivores like Scutosaurus. These weren't slow, lumbering brutes. They were active, warm-blooded hunters that represented the pinnacle of predatory evolution at the time. For millions of years, the Gorgonopsians and their synapsid relatives ruled the world. It seemed like their dynasty would last forever. But it wouldn't. The world was on the brink of a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. At the end of the Permian period, Earth experienced the single greatest extinction event in its history, known as the Great Dying. Massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia spewed colossal amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, triggering runaway global warming, acid rain, and the stagnation of the oceans. It was an apocalypse. Over 90% of all marine species and 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate species were wiped out. The mighty Dimetrodon was long gone. The terrifying Gorgonopsians vanished. The giant insects of the Carboniferous were a distant memory. The world that had been dominated by synapsids and bizarre amphibians was sterilized. This cataclysmic event reset the course of evolution. The synapsids were decimated. A few small, burrowing forms survived, and their descendants would eventually, over millions of years, evolve into the first true mammals, living in the shadows of the new giants. But in the wake of the Great Dying, a different group of reptiles, the archosaurs, found a world of opportunity. They had been minor players during the Permian, but with their main competitors gone, they exploded in diversity. They were better adapted to the hot, arid conditions of the new world. One branch of these archosaurs would go on to become crocodiles. Another would evolve into pterosaurs, the flying reptiles. And a third, a group that started as small, bipedal runners, would inherit the Earth. These were the first dinosaurs. So, the next time you marvel at a skeleton of a stegosaurus or a triceratops, remember the lost world that came before them. Remember the sail-backed synapsids, the saber-toothed gorgonopsians, and the giant insects that ruled a world bathed in oxygen. The story of life on Earth is so much richer and more complex than just the age of dinosaurs. It's a tale of strange, new forms, of incredible adaptations, and of catastrophic extinctions that paved the way for the next chapter. These forgotten kingdoms are a crucial part of our own deep history, a reminder that the world has been home to many rulers, and that even the mightiest can fall. The dinosaurs had their time, but they were standing on the shoulders of giants. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the deep past. If you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our planet's history. Let us know in the comments which pre-dinosaur creature you found the most fascinating. We'll see you in the next one.